Kia ora. I'm Ruth Lemon.
And I'm Kerry Lee.
We're here to talk to you today about technology legends, the story behind the New Zealand technology curriculum.
A brief overview about what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the history of our New Zealand technology education curriculum, where it's come from, and to where it is now, and the people who have helped influence the curriculum, because we're standing on the shoulders of these amazing giants. We borrow the wisdom of the people who have come before.
So we want to be explicit and make sure that we signpost that Māori were the first technologists in Aotearoa, New Zealand, and have a rich, strong, and long history of technology innovation, hangaro, in Aotearoa, but that is not the focus of what we're talking about today. We will be talking about the European history of technology education in Aotearoa.
So a lot of you may be familiar with the 1877 Education Act. And then in 1900, we had the Manual and Instruction Act. And then in 1903, we had the post-primary education for all students.
And so when we're looking at this time frame, the pre-20th century, picture a classroom full of students using identical materials, following identical processes to generate identical outputs. This was the focus as technical education was seen as preparing you for a career in the manual arts.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. In the 70s and late 70s, UNESCO called for technology education in all countries. It felt that it was really, really important. And then again, in 1980s, it again reinforced the importance of technology education. So in 1975, we got the workshop craft curriculum, which was a change in the way we did things. And then again, there was the year 11 workshop craft curriculum came in. And that was when no longer were you girls doing home economics and cooking and sewing, and the boys woodwork and metalwork, but actually the girls were able to go in and do what had been traditionally a male subject and vice versa.
So in the late 80s, we had the PICO report, which preempted David Lange, who approved funding for the development of technology education. And by the time we get through to 1993, that's when Lockwood Smith called for the introduction of technology as a curriculum area.
So there were a whole lot of learning areas introduced. This Nautilus shell was developed for the 2007 curriculum, and it highlights the colours of each one of the learning areas. One of the things that was raised with the draft technology curriculum was that we wanted it to be innovative and reflect the difference as a curriculum area. So we felt brown wasn't the right colour. So they moved it from this light brown, which was the draft colour, to a chocolatey brown. And hence the word the Choki Doki was formed for this 1995 curriculum.
Okay. The whakatauki that frames teaching and learning and technology education is as follows. Kaua e rangiruatia te hāpai o te hoi. E kore tō tātou waka e u ki uta, which is wonderful. I mean, it embodies the nature of technology, needing that collaborative approach, needing the alignment between design thinking, planning, and then going through your steps as you put your thoughts into action.
We're all coming from our own background and our own specializations. So whether you're in resistant tech or digital tech or design tech, we're all after the same thing. We want resilient, innovative technologists for the future. So we've all got to work together, and that's what this whakatauki is all about. So I think it's perfect for us.
Ka pai. And so if we step back a little bit to the time frame just before the New Zealand curriculum framework was being authored, and that came out in 1993. In the year just before, there was an initiative known as Lighthouse Schools, and that was where you had about 4 or 5 schools that were chosen to test, to be places where you could play, where you could think about and explore the ideas that were going to be going into the curriculum. And we've highlighted Tikipunga High School, where one of our early leaders was, and that was Brent Mawson.
Okay, so initially, with the draft curriculum, what happened was the ministry put out an idea, and they said they wanted people to come and learn about this new curriculum. 15 people were selected throughout New Zealand from primary and secondary sectors. And so they then went to Waikato University and they did a master's course or a master's paper in learning what technology was all about. And then they went back into their schools and trialled PD programs to educate and inform their own school, to trial ideas. And then that was so successful, then the next year, then another 15 were selected. So the first 15 were actually termed first 15. And then the next ones were the second 15. It proved very, very effective because instead of people saying different things, 15 people throughout New Zealand were all singing the same song. We were all saying this is what technology is and this is how it can be taught, and supporting others. The next year there were another 15. The ministry realised how valuable that consistency across the country was, and so they paid for these people to come together on a regular basis to talk, to share, to learn from each other, and to then keep that consistent message and the passion of what this curriculum could do.
And I think that was wonderful, having that focus on relationships and the importance of valuing the skills that the first 15, the second 15 had to share. So if we have a look at the curriculum, as with any document, it continues to evolve. There was a rewrite released in October 2025, with a consultation period closing for that draft on April 28th, 2026. But if we go back around the time that the technology curriculum was being authored, after the 1991 work on the New Zealand curriculum framework, 1991 to 1993, you had technology being written at the same time as Te Whāriki, which was our early childhood bicultural framework that is a world leader. We had on the right there, you can see the Hangaro curriculum, which was authored by 1999. Coming up to 2004, that's when the curriculum started taking place, and thinking started happening for what was going to happen with with the revision. And revisions were completed for both New Zealand curriculum for English medium and Te Maro Tango Aotearoa for Māori medium. The next major update was in 2017 with Digitech and Hangarau Matahiko. So if we break that down.
Okay, so 1995 curriculum, it had 3 strands. One focused on learning, and we call that the head strand, learning. Then there was the hand strand, the doing, and that was called capability, technological capability. And then there was technology and society, and thinking about how technology influences us and how we influence technology. So that's the heart strand, head, hand, heart. Now, in the next curriculum that came out, the 2007 and then again the 2017 curriculum, again they had this head, hand, heart. The head, the knowledge strand, the hand, the practice strand, and the heart, the nature of technology strand. And 2026.
If we break that down a little further, in the 2007 and 2017 documents, we look to the middle. That's our head, technological knowledge, and that's broken down further so that teachers got guidance on what was involved in learning from the head. We go to the left there for technological practice. That's our hands. And again, it's broken down so that teachers get guidance on what happens at each part of the process. And at the right-hand side, there's our heart, the nature of technology. What is happening and what are the implications of our design work in a broader sense?
So something quite different for the 2007 curriculum was the information that was underpinning the curriculum. So what were we after? What was everyone trying to achieve? So every teacher and every learner was given the information about what the vision was for our learners. So whether you were doing maths or whether you were doing technology, everyone had the same vision for the people in front of them. Early childhood, primary and secondary all had that same vision, the same values, and we were all trying to meet the same key competencies. And that was across all the learning areas. And that was clearly stated at the front of the curriculum.
So here we have a few examples of support material. The one illustrated example, the one non-illustrated example is the Chokidoki. And the learning scenarios in there are absolutely brilliant and can guide teachers who may be struggling to think what could be an authentic context, what could be a need or a problem for me and my students to be exploring and engaging with. So definitely check that one out. I'll talk a little bit about the digital sites. That's Tahurangi, right? A lot of our older content, the tech link videos, the case studies have been moved over to Tahurangi. And then for our senior school, there's NZQA and Tahatu.
Tahatu is where you're looking at pathways and careers and linking in with industry.
Okay. And could you tell me a little bit about all of those print resources?
Oh, please have a look. An extensive range of print resources were published and sent to schools free. They will be in somebody's cupboard. So look out, talk to your experienced people and ask if they have copies of anything, because some of those resources are amazing. Every one of the tech areas had a book that said what content could be taught, providing case studies, what was happening in industry. So your learners could see that what they were doing actually mirrored what industry was doing. The design and graphics one had extensive range of skills and New Zealand examples.
And here we have some of our key influences, those giants whose shoulders we're standing on. So at bottom right.
Bottom right, we've got Brent Mawson, and he's the one that Ruth has already mentioned. And so he was one of the people who was trialling ideas with one of the pilot schools up in Whangarei. Looking at, we were given a whole lot of things. I was like, well, what can we actually do with it? So he was trialing it before this curriculum was even developed. So the information here was based on what was happening or what could happen in schools. So this is Alistair Jones. He was one of the leaders, the people who went to international conferences, who met with politicians, who helped create the 1995 the draft curriculum and the 1995 curriculum. He was the one who ran the courses for the first 15, the second 15. So looked at how do you change people's mindsets? How do you get people to understand the complex thing of what technology is all about? So that was led through Waikato University and Alistair Jones. He's still very, very passionate about supporting technology education. He was one of the people who set up TENS and been aware that technology teachers needed a strong advocate. They needed to come together and be supported. So he was the one who did that. Vicky Compton is next. She was also at Waikato as a researcher. She's a teacher, was a teacher, and very, very passionate about supporting teachers, looking at what they can do, what they're struggling with, and making technology real. So she had a big influence in curriculum material and curriculum support material. A lot of the research she developed, and therefore that led to the indicators of progression, the progression diagrams, all came from research that Vicky and her team did.
Ka pai. And also some of her earlier research was done under Vicky Mathers, such as her PhD, looking at some of the key movers and shakers in the development happening at that time.
Next person, Cliff Harwood. Cliff's a teacher as well. He then was teacher educator and did a lot of research and did a lot of PD. So he was one of the key people who ran a lot of courses for teachers. He's very practical and developed a lot of practical resources for teachers to be able to adapt and modify and help their learners. He did a lot of work for online resources for TKI, looking at case studies, and always coming at things from a teacher and a learner's perspective. The last person is Glyn McGregor. Glyn McGregor worked for the Royal Society, and so he bridged the gap between industry and education. So he helped us look at where we were going, and so he enabled teachers to work with industry. So schools and students could develop case studies, they could see where careers could be developed. He was one of the strong developers of TechLink. That was a site where we had a lot of resources developed by technologists for technology education. So again, another big influencer of technology education as we know it today.
And we have many people that worked with that first 15, with that second 15. This list here has been made into a table for the conference paper for the original presentation on this topic. So if you're interested, please do check out the paper. But these names here were all people who were involved in the development of the Choki Doki. And their names were shared in the back cover of the draft. So what we did was Kerry had a wonderful idea for researching these giants, applied for ethics, and then worked with Bronwyn Evans to interview a wide range of these key people. It was around that point that I was lucky enough to join the project in compiling and analysing some of what was being talked about in the interviews.
So many of the people we spoke to from those previous two lists talked about the changes, and we've had many iterations, and the changes are consistent. So we had changes in pedagogy, and that led to changes in status and knowledge, and what was important knowledge and what wasn't important, the skills. There were timetabling issues because that again came back to status. And then there was declining money towards PD. So, and that for a subject that's very dynamic and changing constantly, such as technology education, PD is fundamental and it's really critical. So all of these things were common across all the people we spoke to.
One area that was a strength that came through in the interviews was the collaborative nature of the curriculum development, how there were groups of people that were working together, and how, for example, international partners, it was a two-way street where research was happening to inform the curriculum, but New Zealand was also seen as world leading in terms of our technology curriculum. So that was informing the research. We had teachers who were working in on the curriculum development, being involved with things like the Lighthouse schools and the Beacon practice. And then we had our first 15 and our second 15 acting as regional facilitators in conjunction with universities and the Ministry of Education.
This is my favourite part of the 1995 curriculum. All my students always know about page 16 of the 1995 curriculum because to me, it's what technology is all about. So technology education builds on your students' prior knowledge, their existing knowledge and their skills and their values. Technology deals with real needs or problems. There isn't one single right answer. You want lateral thinking and willingness to test a wide range of divergent options. You want students to go through failure analysis. You want them to come out with a tangible outcome, usually. You want them to trial their ideas. The teacher isn't going to tell and to teach, but rather walk alongside and guide and challenge and support and learn with the students. And that hasn't, well, I don't know. What do you think? Has that changed?
Well, I think after 30 years, it shouldn't have changed because that's the philosophical underpinnings of the technology curriculum. But I think that the one thing that is constant is change. What we want to try and do is we want to keep the words of the Whakatauki in mind, ki mua, ki muri, so that while we accept and sometimes embrace the changes that lie ahead of us, we do so remembering what came before so that we can hold on to the gold that came before. Yeah. So please, ngā mihi, thank you everyone for listening, and please do get in touch with us via TEN's support email. I think you can pretty much find us if you Google us. But do carry on a conversation, ask questions, share your thoughts. We'd love to hear from you.
Kia ora, everyone.